Bible verse and a teaching that most people in the world know. And even if they don't know the exact words, they know the spirit behind it. Hi, I'm Bobby, the pastor of Lighthouse Church and Online Ministry. Today, we're going to continue our deep dive in the Sermon on the Mount. And remember, the reason why we are doing this deep dive is because of how rich the Sermon on the Mount is. The Sermon on the Mount is the greatest sermon ever preached. And it's taken us weeks and weeks and months to cover it all, when it took Jesus maybe a couple hours. And so I just want to encourage you that while we're almost done with the Sermon on Mount, but while we're reading these or teaching on them, please go back and read them for yourself. Because like I said, Sermon on Mount is super, super powerful, but it also teaches us how a Christian should live, and how a Christian should live unlegalistic. You know, legalism is all about following rules so you can seem righteous, so that you can seem better. When being a Christian is all about Christ, all about following Christ, but also the love we have for Christ and those in our life, those who God is putting in our lives. Today, like I said, we're trying to finish up the Sermon on the Mount. Today, we are going to look at Matthew 7 and just verse 12. And I know that this seems weird. I know that it seems like it's such a small or just one verse to teach on, but this is a verse that is extremely powerful and a verse that is extremely meaningful. And like I said, this is a verse that most people know. This is a teaching that most people agree with. And so Matthew 7:12 says, "So, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets." Before we get into this, we need to know two things. The first thing we need to know is in Leviticus, it talks about the law. All 600 plus laws that the Jews had to follow. And, God really sums up the two greatest commandments by saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and as well love others as you love yourself. Truly, Matthew 7:12 is it is saying the same thing. If you love people, if you treat people how you want to be treated, guess what? You will follow the 600 plus laws. The cool thing about the laws in the Torah and the Old Testament is they go in such detail about how you treat others, how you love others. They go into detail about how Jewish business owners need to respect their customers, not cheating their customers out of money, not cheating their employees out of money. And it just keeps going in deeper and deeper detail. And it shows us that we must care for people if we want to be a follower of Christ. If we truly want to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind, we need to love people. And so that's where this verse comes in. The golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. And the funny thing is, side note, a lot of people probably don't know that, treat people as you want to be treated comes from the Bible. But it does. And Jesus is telling us, treat those how you want to be treated. And Jesus does this a lot. Like when he taught us how to pray, he said that pray like this. And then he goes into, forgive those, or allow us to forgive those who, or forgive us as we forgive those who have sinned against us. And what that is saying is Jesus is saying that if you can't forgive others, then you yourself won't be forgiven either. And this is kind of the same vein. Jesus is telling you, you need to treat others how you want to be treated. You need to love others how you want to be loved. And so the first thing to this, and I've said this before, is you first need to, first of all, you need to love God. I mean, that's why it's the greatest commandment. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Respect God, honor God with all that you can. And secondly, what this shows us is if you want to love other people, if you want to treat people with kindness, you first need to love yourself. This is something I struggled with for years. I mean, I've talked about this in much detail, and I won't get into the super dirty details because I don't want to, get a strike or get another email from YouTube saying, I'm saying bad things, or, they're worried about me, which they should be worried. But the bottom line is this. I learned that if I truly want to accept God's love, and if I truly want to love others, I need to love myself first. And there are still times that I look in the mirror and I say, man, you are a horrible person. Man, you'd be better off if you weren't here. And then God uses that spiritual 4x4, hits me overhead, and says, but I love you. I care for you. And if I love you, you should love yourself. And so I started loving myself. I started respecting myself more. And through that, I started loving people in a deeper way. Because like I said, it says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Here it says treat others how you would want to be treated. So I want to encourage you. Start loving yourself. Start treating others how you want to be treated. And sometimes it's hard. People are annoying. But the truth is, you're probably annoying as well. I know I am. And so I need the grace of God. And I need to treat people how I want to be treated. And if we do this, like the end of 12 says, This sums up the law and the prophets. If we love people as we love ourselves, if we treat people how we want to be treated, then this will fulfill the law. So, how do we do this? What are some action steps we can take? First of all, and this is hard for me because I am a very instinctual person. But first of all, when we're dealing with people, allow yourself to take a step back. Allow yourself to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus say? And do it. But also, pray that God will put you in positions which will challenge you to have to love people who are difficult. When I was younger, praying for, I felt called to be a pastor, but I was praying for God to show me his people group. And yeah, I felt called to minister to people coming out of homelessness and gangs and drugs and so on and so forth. But God put it in my mind. God gave me the people who I needed to minister to. And that is people who are hard to love. And truth is, sometimes we're all hard to love. But God will give us opportunities to practice loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. Practice to treating people as we want to be treated. And if we do this, the more we do this, people will start treating you how they want to be treated as well. But secondly, and lastly, and I want to close with this, I think the best thing you can do is when you're caught in a situation with someone that's difficult to love, is just quickly pray, Lord, let me love them like you love them. Because we are representatives of Christ. And so we must love like Jesus loves. It's not easy. Like I said, sometimes it's difficult. I work with, homeless people on a daily basis. And they have addiction issues. They have mental illness. And so on and so forth. But what I learned quickly in ministry was you need to have a short memory. And you need to show people love, respect, and treat them how you want to be treated, no matter what they do to you. That doesn't mean, put yourself in situations where they can take advantage of you or hurt you. But what that means is putting yourself in situations where you can love on them and treat them how you want to be treated. There's a reason why even non-believers hold or say they need to hold on to this rule. And it's because it's a powerful rule. And it's a rule that comes straight from God. So, let's read it one last time. So in everything, do to others what you would have do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Thank you.